Good evening, everyone, and I hope like everyone is staying safe and good. And first of all, thank you for registering to Speaker Series dedicated to NLP using TensorFlow. Speaker Series is a bi-weekly session organized by DC Cap, where we bring in distinguished thought leaders, technology masters, change makers around the globe to address on varied topics which matters most to the community. So we have already organized over 15 plus sessions of speaker series across various technological streams, and you can find all the recorded sessions on our website www.dccap.com under the resources section. That said, let me use this opportunity to give you all a quick intro about DCCAP, the organization behind this speaker series. So DCCAP is a digital commerce agency specializing in building e-commerce storefronts for clients abroad. We specialize in Magento, Shopify, One, BigCommerce. And that being said, let me bounce back to today's session. I'm very honored to introduce Usha Rangaraju. Usha Rangaraju is an polymath and India's first Google Kaggle Grandmaster, and she leads several communities like Women in Machine Learning and Data Science, TensorFlow User Group, Women in Data, and also like she's an Women in Data Science ambassador, and she organized Neuro AI, which is the first ever research symposium, the interface of neuroscience and data science. And she spoke at various conferences, and also like she has prepared a curriculum for BITS Pilani Masters in Data Science program, so which was used by 20,000 plus students. And also she prepares an syllabus for upgrades postgraduate program in data science, so that was consumed around like 10,000 plus students. And she's a very active person in the community building, and she always keen in sharing her knowledge in terms of data science. And we are honored and proud to have you, Usha, here. And should you have any questions, guys, please feel free to raise your questions in the Q&A section that you can see at the bottom of your Zoom window. Without further ado, let me hand over the session to Usha. And thank you so much, Usha.
Thank you so much, Shrija, for the kind invitation. So this is a very basic breezer introduction to NLP using TensorFlow 2.0. You're just going to see the bare minimum required to get you started with NLP TensorFlow 2.0. So if you see TensorFlow, learning about TensorFlow itself takes long time, and NLP is also a huge concept. It takes long time. So to get you started very quickly in 1 hour, I have prepared the curriculum such that to just give the bare minimum basics, to get started with the hands-on very quickly. So there is lot to than what is not being said in this session. So this is just a quick starter session for you to get up and started with NLP using TensorFlow 2.0. And about me, she's already introduced. There's only one thing which I would like to add. Follow me on Twitter at urangaraju. And the communities which I lead, there are meetup links here. Please do go and become a members of these meetup groups, because we organize events frequently. And currently we are running Women in Data Science conference. So there's like 100 plus speakers. There's a lot of events happening this weekend, tomorrow also. So if you're free tomorrow, please do go on RSP Women in Data Science events. We host it in Vimal DS meetup group. And let's get started. So the session I've designed it such that, even somebody who doesn't know what machine learning is should be able to follow along. So I've structured my sessions in that, considering somebody even without a knowledge should be follow along. And what is machine learning? So traditional programming and machine learning. In a traditional programming, you have data, you have program, and then you get output. But in the machine learning, you just you know you give the output and you give the data, and the computer will tell you what is the logic which maps the data and the output. So this is one difference between traditional programming and machine learning. So in traditional programming, you write some set of sequential instructions Whereas in machine learning, you just give the data and you tell this is the output, and then the algorithm, the machine learning algorithm finds a mapping or the rule which maps the data to the output. So this is what is traditional programming and machine learning. There are different types of machine learning. One is the supervised machine learning, and the other is unsupervised machine learning, and reinforcement learning. So let's focus on what is supervised learning, because today we're going to talk about supervised machine learning problem. So in a supervised machine learning, you have a clear, distinct target variable. So for example, if you're going to deal with a Boston house price prediction, so the target variable is you're trying to predict the house. Or if you're going to have a classification problem, like you want to classify the iris flower classification, you want to classify which of the species the iris flower belongs to. It's a very clear classification problem. So, supervised learning means the problem statement is very clear. You have a very distinct, clear target variable, and you have a set of input features, and you have a very clear target variable. That's supervised machine learning. And today we're going to see about supervised machine learning problem, but unsupervised we're not going to see today, but I'll still give you a breezer about what supervised learning is. Unsupervised learning is you just have data points. You don't have any clear distinction of what the problem statement is. You're just trying to use the data points to find some similarities among data, trying to come up with some insights, etc. And so since we are going to look at supervised machine learning, let's not discuss further about unsupervised machine learning. And we're going to use deep learning techniques today. And so there are some minor differences between both our learning techniques, but there are some minor differences between machine learning and deep learning. And so you have input. You have for machine learning, you have some input and you have an output, and you have a clearly set of extracted features, and then give it to a classification algorithm, and then you get the output. So for machine learning algorithm, deep learning algorithm, there's not always there's a clear feature extraction phase is not clear, distinct feature extraction phase is not available. So feature extraction happens within the neural networks. And so this is one distinct features between machine learning and deep learning. And let's look at the building blocks of deep learning. So building blocks of deep learning, we have neural networks. So if you see on this side, the most important three layers of neural network is the input layer, the output layer, and the hidden layer. So all three layers are represented in different colors. And so this is a very simple neural network with just one hidden layer, but in reality, you will have multiple hidden layers like the one on the right hand side. And the bare minimum concepts which you need to understand, to get along with today's hands-on is you need to understand what are the building blocks of neural networks, which we saw in the previous slide. You need to understand a concept called optimizer. And what is an optimizer? What is a loss function? What are metrics and what are activation functions? These are bare minimum concepts which you need to understand what it is to be able to follow with the hands-on exercise, which we are going to see today. So optimizer. The main objective of machine learning problem is you're trying to find the rules between the input which matches the target variable, right? So there will be some cost function which is associated with it, and the main objective of your whole algorithm is to minimize this cost function. So the function which minimizes this cost function is called optimizer. The whole objective of deep learning, algorithm, you will have the machine will predict given output, and there will be an actual output. So you'll compare between the machine predicted output and the actual output, and you'll see how much it is varying. Based on how much it is varying, you'll go and adjust the bias weights and biases. Again, this process keeps happening. So it's more important. There will always be a function called cost function. So the main objective will be to minimize this cost function. The function which does this job is called optimizer. And so the loss function, as I said you, so there'll be an actual output, and there will be the machine will predict an output. So this actual output and what the machine predicted, there will be some difference. So initially these layers will have something called weights. Initially it will be some random weights. You will assign some random weights. So you'll be passing the input in the input layer, and when you're starting, you'll be assigning some random weights, and you will start. And when it propagates once, and when the output comes out, you will already know what the actual output is, and you'll compare with what the machine has predicted here. So you will be comparing the predicted output and the true output. The function which compares that is called the loss function, and our objective is always to keep this loss function as minimum as possible. So the function which minimizes this loss function is called optimizer. So generally in a network, layered network, you have, you'll first, when you begin, you will start with an in random weights and biases, then you will pass the input through these layers, and finally there will be an output which will be predicted. You'll be comparing the true output and the predicted output. Function which does this is loss, and your main objective in a deep learning algorithm is going to be minimizing this loss function. And the function which does that job is called the optimizer. And so what is metrics? So metrics are nothing but a mechanism to evaluate how good your model is. So for example, a student is studying in a university, and there are marks to evaluate how good the student is, or you have grade system to evaluate how good the student is. The same way, when you build a model, you need some kind of metrics to evaluate how good your model is. And what are activation functions? So when you take a real world data, there's a lot of complexity in your data. There's a lot of high dimensional complexity. To be able to model this high dimensional, you have a nonlinear data, and you have high dimensional complexity associated with it. To be able to model this high dimensional complexity and nonlinearity, you need a special type of function called activation functions. So this is called activation functions. So this is about the basic deep learning to be able to follow up with today's hands-on. Let's understand a little bit about NLP, and then post this NLP refresher, we'll get started with a basic hands-on example, which is about doing a text classifying whether a piece of text is positive or negative. So when you see NLP refresher, NLP mostly it's natural language text. So if you see text, your deep learning algorithm cannot understand text. It can only understand. It can only understand numbers. So you need a way to convert this text into numbers. So this is our first goal. So if you see listen is a word. How can you convert a word into text? You can either encode each alphabet. For each alphabet, you already have ASCII code. You can assign the ASCII code, and you can do the encoding. This is one form which you can do it. And this is ASCII encoding, and you can either opt for this, or you can also have a loop dictionary. For each and every word you can have a specific set of code. So you can either have a lookup, or you can have a lookup, or you can have an ASCII. One way is to do an ASCII representation, which is quite inefficient. So the other way is to have, because you may not be able, if you do a letter by letter representation, then you may not be able to capture the contextual similarities. So this ASCII representation is inefficient. So the next form of possible option for us is to encode each word into a numeric character. So if you see, I love my dog, I love my cat, I'm encoding each word into a numeric character. So this, what is the problem with this is, so I love my cat is 001, 002, 003, 004. I love my dog is the same thing except for the last digit, it's 005. So we are able to capture the similarity, contextual similarity to an extent. And so, for example, if you have a particular sentence, and for every word you have a particular digit mapped to a word, and then given a sentence, it should be easy for you to just go to the lookup dictionary, find the corresponding digit which maps to the word, and come up with a vector. And so this is how I can represent, go this, the first row is a dictionary lookup, and the second row is converting the sentences into embedding vectors. And so how do you do this in TensorFlow? In TensorFlow, you have an array. There are two sentences. I really love my dog. My dog loves my manatee. There are two sentences. And in TensorFlow, the way you do is you create a tokenizer object. Tokenizer, you create this, import this class, and then create the tokenizer object. And then there is a method called text to sequences where you just pass the array of sentences. So list of sentences, once you pass this, for each sentences, the embedding vector is automatically created. So this is how you do convert a text into numerical form in TensorFlow using tokenizer object. And what is one difference, one big problem here is, see, the text data which we have, the sentences are always not of the same length. We have sentences which are of varied length. So what do we do in that case? If the sentence, or if all the sentences are of the same length, then it's good. But in real life, you will not have all the sentences as equal length. The different sentences will have, every sentence has got its own length. So this is one problem. There is another problem also. Sometimes we have, there is always, we can't find out all the words in the world. There will always be some words which will be unknown or random in a particular piece of text given to us. And when we encounter this unknown words which is not there in a dictionary, how to encode it? This is the second challenge. So whenever we encode unknown words which is not there in a dictionary, you can represent it as a special kind of character called OOV. And when the sentences are not of equal length, how do you handle it? This is the second piece of challenge for us. So while we discuss the differences in the length, we also, there is this concept called embedding vectors. So these embedding vectors are nothing but to capture the relationships in a multi-dimensional space. We have something called embedding vector. So this embedding vector is a better form of representation than the previous method which we saw. For example, good and bad are opposites, and they have some connections between each other. And so if you want to say good and bad are extremely opposite of each other, and not bad and may fall somewhere between good and bad. So this, you can capture such relationships and contextual information very easily in using embedding vectors. And so it's a better form of representation. And that is one thing. And the second thing which I wanted to tell you was, when we have unequal sentences, what is one thing which we can do is we can use a padded input sequence. So if you see here, the input sequence is, whenever, in order to make all the sentences of equal length, what we do is we take the biggest, there are two options. One, you can take the length of the biggest sentences and assign that as the sentence length. And if the biggest sentence is of 50 length, for every word which is less than 50, you will have to append zeros either before it or after it. So that way all the sentences will be of equal length. This is one thing. And so this is one way where you can find the biggest sentence and then set every other sentence to that length, or you can give a predefined sentence length and then ensure all the sentences are of that length. If something is greater than that length, then you will have to crop it off. So this is also another way of dealing with different sentence lengths. Now let's quickly jump on to hands-on. I'll just share my notebook. So let's look at an use case, that is solving text classification problem using TensorFlow Hub. So text classification problem is, we have huge, for example, you take Zomato review or you take any movie review, there's huge volumes of text. There's nobody has time to sit and go through all these reviews and classify if a review is positive or negative. So you can easily do this using TensorFlow Hub. You can easily solve this problem and using TensorFlow. There's something called TensorFlow Hub we are using. This is nothing but, instead of writing models from the scratch, we can already use some pre-trained models, which is off-the-shelf models, which people have used to solve the problems. Instead of training, not everyone has got great computer resources, GPU and all that, to train something from the scratch. So what we can actually do is use these off-the-shelf models, to actually use these off-the-shelf models, just fine-tune this last few layers to solve our specific use case. So this whole thing is called transfer learning. And we are going to use some off-the-shelf models, which is pre-trained models already available in TensorFlow Hub, to solve this problem of text classification. So text classification here, specific problem we are going to see is, we have an IMDb movie classification data set, where you just have to classify the movie reviews, whether it is positive or negative. So these are the packages which you need to import. And one thing you will have to note here is, we are using something called TensorFlow underscore datasets. So the TensorFlow underscore datasets is like, you have a lot of predefined data sets already available out there. These are toy data sets for you if you want to learn machine learning or deep learning. Initially when you get started, instead of feeling overwhelmed, you can just go and experiment with this toy data set. That's called TensorFlow data sets. And we import the needed packages, and then what we do is, we create train data, validation data, test data. So a little about test data, validation and train data is, the reason why we split our data set into 3 buckets. First step, what we did was, we just imported the needed packages to do the solve the problem, which is needed TensorFlow libraries. Like, it could be NumPy package, then we downloaded something called TensorFlow Hub, and we also downloaded something called, imported something called TensorFlow datasets, which contains a repository of, data sets. And then what we're going to do is, we're going to just call this, there's a specific function called load. We're just going to call this TensorFlow datasets. We have an alias called TFDS. We're going to use this load function, which will automatically split in the data set into 3 buckets: train data, validation data and test data. You'll have to understand why we divide the data set into 3 buckets: train data, test data and validation data. The reason why we are divided to 3 buckets is, you will be training your model, and then you will make your model, you'll train your model, and then you need to test your model on some unseen data. So that's why you divide into 3 buckets: training, test and validation data. And by doing this, you prevent overfitting of data, so your model will generalize well to an unseen data. That's why you divide it into three buckets. Since we are using a preloaded data set which is already available in TensorFlow.datasets package, we don't have to do anything. We just have to call this .load method and we have to set the parameters. So in .load method, then I'm telling this is the data set name, giving the name of the data set. Then I'm telling in what ratio it has to split the train, test, and validation data. That's it. So it will do the job for me. It will divide the data set into three buckets and it will give it to me. So we are going to use something called TensorFlow Hub. We are not going to write models from the scratch. Instead, we are going to make advantage of this pre-trained models. So we have something called the hub.keras layer. We are just downloading one particular pre-trained embedding, and we are just giving the URL, and then we are downloading that embedding. Instead of writing model from the scratch, we are using a pre-trained model. We are just adjusting the last few layers and using that to solve the problem. All right. So what now? We're going to build a deep learning network. So the first layer is a sequential layer. Then we have downloaded some pre-trained embedding. We are going to put that as a second layer. Then we are going to finally adjust the last few layers. So the last few layers here is the final layer is just a single layer because we have going to classify whether it is a positive or negative sentiment. So it's going to be a one dense layer, and the activation function is ReLU. And this is a very simple model we are building. And the loss function is we having an Adam optimizer, and the optimizer, I told you the job of the optimizer is to minimize the loss function. The loss function is binary cross entropy, and the metrics we are using is accuracy. So we are building a model. We're having a minimum epochs. Like epochs is the number of times your model is going to go back and forth adjusting the weights. One forward propagation and then one backward propagation. And so shuffle, the reason why you shuffle is you want to keep your data experiment as random as possible. And then you're processing your data in batches. So you batches of data. So that's what this batch parameter we are setting. And then you're building a model, and once you build your model, now you have trained your model in the training data set. Now you want to test it in the unseen data, that is the test data set. So this is building the model, and then you're testing it in the test data set which you have kept aside that are, and then you test it in your test data set, and then we get an accuracy of 87%. And if you, this is a very basic model which we did, if you can do some little bit of fine tunings here and there, you will be able to achieve a better accuracy. And so yes, this is about a basic example of a basic introduction to natural language processing, and to solve a basic problem in natural language processing, which is TensorFlow text classification using TensorFlow 2.0. This is the basic example. So we've come to the end of the session. If anyone asks questions, then we can have a Q&A session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Usha. Like probably I'll just open the chat and Q&A for some time. So if you guys, like if you have any questions, like you can raise your question in the chat section as well as in the Q&A section. Okay, guys, like you can use your chat section for asking your question. Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Usha, for the wonderful session, and thank you everyone, for spending your valuable time here for learning. And so that was in short and crisp on the TensorFlow, Usha. Thank you so much.